Hi, I'm Amber Mack, and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to dive into the top three tech stories of the week and what a week it has been. Before we get into that, wanted to ask where people are watching from. Hello to Mark watching from Los Angeles. Please let us know where you're watching from, and please feel free to share any of your thoughts in the comments about some of the stories we're going to talk about today, because as I mentioned, it's been quite a week in technology, especially with some of the big tech players. So I wanted to dive into that. So let's get started. We're going to start with a story that has been making waves over the past couple of weeks. And this story is all about Pornhub. They, in fact, this Monday morning deleted millions of videos. Now, this is as a result of an investigative piece that went out in the New York Times on December 4th. And it was quite a lengthy piece that essentially talked about what was going on at Pornhub. And as you can see with this quote, some pretty dramatic language as far as some of the videos that this journalist was able to find on the platform. And not just a few videos, but instead thousands and thousands of videos. As they can see here, even a search for girls under 18 or 14-year-old leads to about 100,000 videos at the time. Again, that was around December 4th. And as a result of that, what ended up happening is you would think that immediately Pornhub would clean up the site, but it actually took a few more days, and it took MasterCard and Visa really stepping away and saying that they would no longer allow any payments on that platform. And that happened late last week. As a result of that, what Pornhub ended up doing is that overnight on Sunday, they in fact removed millions of videos, according to Vice. And they definitely have been trying to clean up the site. But really, in many ways, what has happened over the past few days with Pornhub is that we've heard more and more stories about how they've been negligent in terms of ensuring that the content that was uploaded was consensual and really keeping an eye on who was uploading content. Part of the issue in the first place, if you think about how a platform like this works, is that they allowed anyone to upload content. So they allowed user-generated content, just like sites such as YouTube, and didn't verify users. So what they have started to do over the past few days is take more effort in terms of verifying users on that platform and ensuring people are taking pictures beside their names and sending them in as part of the verification. It is by no means perfect. And I think in many ways, if you look at this story, and Pornhub is just one website, in fact, it's one of the top 10 most visited sites in the world. They're owned by a parent company called MindGeek. MindGeek is based in Montreal, and so there are a number of sites under that umbrella. And I would say that when I read more and more about this story, the truth is that when it comes to tech media, myself included, I'm very disappointed as far as really dropping the ball in many ways. And I know people will say, well, there have been people on this story before the New York Times article as of December 4th, which is absolutely true. But at the end of the day, I think the media has largely ignored what has been taking place on Pornhub, as well as other sites owned by MindGeek. And of course, our attention has been turned to some of the other social media platforms, such as Facebook and Twitter. And I hope now we will also include such a popular site, and a site that clearly over the past few years really hasn't been paying attention as it should be in terms of the type of videos that have been uploaded there. And there are so many stories that have come out over the past few days talking about young girls who've had videos that have been shared there by ex-boyfriends, videos of shower cam videos, of course, that were not shared with consent. And the list goes on and on. And I really have to question the executive team at MindGeek. They must have known about this, and they continue to allow this to take place. And it really makes me think about the technology industry in general and how we really need a reboot in terms of the people in leadership. And we need people to be designing safe spaces online, places where people can go. And this is not an attack on porn, but of course it is an attack on many of the illegal acts that took place within these videos. And that is the issue at hand. And I don't know about other people watching, I'd be curious what you think. But at the end of the day, I think for those of us who have been around since the early days of the internet, there has always been that promise that we would be able to create this incredible community that essentially made the world a better place. And instead, what has happened is that there are a small number of people at the top within these big tech companies that really don't have that same mission. And we can see how troublesome that is, especially going into 2021. So again, thanks for joining me today and talking about the top 3 tech stories of the week. We're going to shift focus a little bit. I know there are a lot of people who've been paying attention to this story that took place just a couple of days ago. Twitter announced that it is shutting down Periscope in March of 2021. Now, just a little bit of a background here, Twitter bought Periscope in 2015. They said in a post on Medium that they have had declining usage and rising costs. And essentially that has made the platform unsustainable. As much as I love live streaming, I'd have to agree it was never a really solid experience on Periscope. They really kind of missed the mark in many ways. And it's really unsurprising. They also said in that same article on Medium that this doesn't mean that they're going to step away entirely from live streaming. They still believe that there is a role for live video on the platform. So 2021 will be an interesting year to see what happens with Twitter and the live video capabilities that they have built in to the platform. The third story I wanted to talk about is a big one as well for this week. And this is not a story that begins and ends this week. Instead, it's a story that has really been a constant over the years. But of course, what we're seeing right now is how damaging this can be, especially as we start to see COVID-19 vaccines come into the general public and start being used by countries around the world. Very disturbing in terms of vaccine misinformation and how it's run rampant on social media. The Washington Post does have a really good article that talks about how you're able to spot misinformation. It also talks about the fact that companies such as Facebook and Twitter are redoubling their efforts with new rules related to vaccines that are coming out. They're adding new labels. They're pointing people towards links in terms of legitimate news. I'd be curious what people in the comments think in terms of whether or not this is going to work. You know, I see it this way. If you think about the number of people who are sharing misinformation, I'm not sure that simply providing a link to factual information is going to drown out all of those people who continue to share misinformation. And that misinformation is essentially amplified by many of the algorithms that are built within these social media sites. And therein, in many ways, lies the problem, is that these platforms have become amplifiers for this misinformation. Now, a company that we don't talk a lot about when it comes to misinformation is Pinterest. And it was interesting to see that in 2017, Pinterest was one of the first social media companies to stop searches of vaccines on its site. So they really were early in terms of helping to curb any type of spread as far as misinformation. And then eventually this year, we've seen more and more of the big social media companies that have worked hard to try to step up and try to make sure that there is as much factual information as possible and people aren't able to share misinformation. Now, despite all of these measures that are in place, I will say even over the past few days, I have posted on social media about vaccine news, and inevitably there have been people who have come out and have shared links and Facebook groups and all types of misinformation, and in some cases disinformation, leading individuals down a path. Thankfully, I think there are many of us who have enough of those digital literacy skills to understand what is true, and we're able to research the people who are sharing some of that misinformation and disinformation. But I worry about people who are more vulnerable and who are not necessarily able to to really distinguish between what is true and what is false online. I also did an interview this morning, and through that interview, I was doing some research, and this will not be a surprise. But the more time people spend on social media, the more inclined they are to believe some of this misinformation about vaccines. So you would think that the more time you spent online, the more access to information that you have. But again, what we're seeing is that in many cases, this just helps those people who are anti-vaxxers to build that narrative because they're able to find other people who also support them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't question what is in the vaccines. I'm not saying that you shouldn't question it and be curious about the process of approval. But at the end of the day, I think we've seen so far that every scientist and health expert is coming out in support of these vaccines. And it's so critically important that people continue to understand and respect that they are safe if, in fact, we're ever going to get out of this nightmare, which is COVID-19. So fingers crossed as we get into 2021 that things get better. I'm not 100% sure that's going to happen on social media, but I do believe that we have a lot of work to do. And I know there are good people out there who are trying to do a lot of that work, and it's not going to be an easy war to win. So I wanted to thank you again for joining me for the top 3 tech stories of the week. We are going to try to do more here on HAPS in terms of technology coverage and have a chance to tune in with all of you every week. So please don't hesitate to share your comments or ideas you have about the type of coverage that you would like to see. Wanted to get back on here and are excited to see all of the great work that the HAPS team has been doing over the past few weeks since we last did a live broadcast. And if you are interested in staying on top of all of the latest technology news, I encourage you to check out my newsletter. Totally free and easy to sign up. All you have to do is head on over to ambermac.com/newsletter. We send out an issue every Tuesday, and I'm going to be doing a technology trends report in the new year. So in 2021, one of our first issues back is going to be focusing on the top trends, emerging technology trends that are going to affect all of us. And if you want to be able to wrap your head around how these technology trends are going to affect you in your business and your life at home, I encourage you to check it out. There is no cost attached. Again, just head on over to ambermac.com/newsletter. Okay, so we have a comment in here that just came in from Discombobulated. He said, I would like to see some boxing news. I don't know if you mean Boxing Day news, but let me know if you want to clarify that a little bit. And thank you for your comment as well. Yeah, please keep the comments coming. We want to do more regularly on HAPS and be able to deliver some really important and timely technology content to all of you, and just help to act really as a guide to be able to navigate what is now a tremendous web in terms of the complexities of big technology and social media, and of course, the introduction of artificial intelligence. And 2021 is going to be a year like no other. I think what we've seen during COVID-19 is really an acceleration of all of this technology. So stick with us, and thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. And most importantly, stay safe.